Hey Waffle Gang, I do hope you're well. My name is Mark and today we're checking out some more Reddit stories, and if you do love a Reddit story, why not consider hitting that like, subscribe, maybe that notification bell too, and let's crack on with today's first story. Much love, guys. Now today's first story comes from a throwaway account, and it says, I, male 23, fucked up and told my girlfriend, female 21, of 18 months, that she does the least out of all my exes. Oh, frick. Throwaway because my girlfriend is an active Redditor. So, a little background information. I've been with my girlfriend for a year and a half. She's my longest relationship and I'm very much in love with her. She's beautiful, funny, smart, and some days I can't believe I ended up being so lucky. I have had 4 relationships in the past, none of them lasting even a year. She had a friends with benefits relationship in the past, so I'm her first real relationship. And at times it feels like she's my first real relationship as well. We go to the same school and we're living together as well, which is a big first for the both of us. It all started when we were struggling in bed after a long day. I asked her, do I do more for you than he did? He, meaning her ex. She replies, of course, and kisses me. She then asks me the same question, and I idiotically reply, well, other than my fling, you do the least for me. She instantly stops cuddling and looks at me with a what the fuck face, like I was joking. Honestly, I should have said I was joking at that point, but I didn't. She then asks what the hell I'm talking about. We argue for a long time and it basically culminates in me asking her what she has done for me. She says she can't think of things on the spot because she doesn't keep track and does nice things for me because she wants to. After thinking about it for a few minutes, she mentions how she pays for over half of our meals and always offers to help with rent when I'm short. I tell her that's nice, but ask her when she's gone out of her way to do things for me. She then says she bought me food and a box of Red Bull for me when I was studying. I tell her that the place where she bought the food is 5 minutes away from where we live, and she was going to Target anyway, so buying Red Bull is not out of her way. I then remind her when she had food poisoning, I drove 20 minutes out of the way to get food for her. My girlfriend at this point became livid and told me that I don't appreciate her, and just because she doesn't make a big deal out of what she does for me, doesn't mean she doesn't do them. She asks me angrily why I'm even with her if she does the least for me. To which I reply because I love you and I don't feel this way about anybody else. She rolls her eyes and tells me I should just be with my exes because she's trying her hardest right now with her crazy schedule. I try to apologize to her, but she isn't listening and goes to sleep. In the morning we wake up and I try giving her a hug, which she resists. I go shower and she gets up and leaves without even speaking to me. Usually she's back to normal after sleeping and is more willing to talk about what happened. This is the first time I've seen her still pissed off in the morning, and I don't know what to do. I've tried texting her, but she's ignoring all my texts. I just want to fix this, but I'm not sure how. TLDR, told my girlfriend she does the least for me out of my exes. She blows up and isn't speaking to me. What do I do? Oh, bloody hell, guy really just turned around and said, I love you, but you're just objectively my worst girlfriend. And then was confused on why she was upset. It's like, come on, brother. And you know, the comparison was bad enough. You could have stopped then. You could have said, fuck, I fucked up here. I should stop. But he chose to double down and argued the evidence, literally fact-checking her contributions in real time. Saying something like, actually, you know, Target was on the way, so that doesn't count. And what gets me, you know, I don't think it makes it right the way he's talking about her, but at any point, he could have said, you know, I was joking. Several points. He could have said I was joking, but just didn't take it, just kept doubling down. I mean, I'm not sure how you turn that around, because from her perspective, she's going to look at you all the time now, like everything she does is being sort of like evaluated. I mean, ask yourself, would you want to be in that, knowing that he might be thinking, you know, out of all of his girlfriends, I do the least, and he won't be changing that way of thinking anytime soon, right? You know, that's what will probably be going through my mind anyway. But So Close Magoo says, I'm not going to bash you and call you a dick like a lot of people on here are doing, just because I want to make sure you don't just write this comment off. Quoting, the place where she brought the food is 5 minutes away from where we live, and she was going to Target anyway, so buying Red Bull is not out of the way for her. And then says, dude, the amount of ingratitude in that statement, especially she was going to Target anyways, is alarming. She was thinking of you. That's what matters. Relationships aren't jobs. It's not like she should have logged a specific amount of time by driving out of the way in order to earn brownie points. I think this is maybe more of a personal issue with you than it is a relationship one. Gratitude matters. It will make a difference in your quality of life if you could shift your perspective a little bit. It does come off as petty that you brushed the Red Bull off as not being out of her way. Hopefully, it's a lesson learned. I don't think you're just a dick or an ass, but I really hope you've put some thought into what the commenters here have had to say about it. Just something to think about, I guess. Commenter simply says to OP, learning is fun, isn't it? OP replies saying, it sure is painful. Commenter says, fuck me. You're keeping points. Fuck me. You're keeping points on who does the most for the other. How the fuck do you even measure that? Dick move. Buy flowers, apologize profusely. Maybe she'll be in the holiday spirit. Don't be too surprised if she decides to just dump you for it though. OP says, yeah, I understand. I found that she ripped up her Christmas card for me and threw it in the trash. I'm just hoping at this point that a Christmas miracle happens. Commenter replies saying, good for her. Sorry for laughing at the fuck me comment. It's just like whenever I read these comments, I always like get a visual image of the potential person. And what popped into my head, do you know the disappointed man meme? The guy with his hands on his hips at the cricket. Just looking really disappointed. And he's like, fuck me. I put an image on the screen, but for you podcast users, just Google disappointed man meme. It come up. But OP did come in with an update and says, I didn't expect my post to get the attention it did. Thank you to everyone who commented and called me an arsehole, dick, etc, etc. So I got what I deserved, which should make everyone happy. My girlfriend finally came home last night after ignoring me the entire day. I asked her if she got my texts and calls and she said yes. She then started packing her bags and I asked her what she was doing. She said she booked a last-minute bus back to where she was from and is going to spend the holidays there. She told me she really needs a break from me and time to think over our relationship. I did everything I could to try and convince her to stay, but she wouldn't budge on her decision. She then broke the news that she wants to go no contact until she gets back from winter break so she won't be distracted, which devastated me. She blocked me from pretty much every form of communication to make it easier. We have never not been in communication for even 24 hours. I asked her about the status of our relationship, and she says she doesn't know and will talk about it when she gets back. So I'll be spending the holidays alone this year in relationship limbo. Merry Christmas, everyone. TLDR, I got what I deserved. Ibby says, valuable lesson learned. Relationships aren't about keeping a tally on who did more for the other. I hope he never came back in after that relationship, so I'm going to assume that relationship is done and dusted. But what do you guys make of this situation? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. And let's move on to another story. Now, our next story comes from Most Animal 5816 from the Am I the Arsehole and Entitled People subreddits. And it says, Am I the Arsehole here for asking my new neighbor to wait for her laundry at her house? Yesterday, after I picked my son up from school, my neighbor flagged me down in the driveway to ask me if she could use my laundry machine because hers was broken. I said sure because she's my neighbor. While we were in her house, gathering her laundry, I made grilled cheeses for myself and my son. When she came over, I showed her where the machine was. After loading the machine, she came into the kitchen. My neighbor asked if she could have a grilled cheese. I might just be a dick, but I thought that was a ridiculous thing to ask. I told her I only made 2. She asked why I did that since I knew she was coming over, because she was coming over for laundry, not grilled cheese. Fucking alarm bells. My son offered her half of his. I always put an egg in my grilled cheese sandwiches. She bit into it and was grossed out by the egg, which she should have seen before she bit into it. She then asked where my trash can was. My son said, don't waste food. So she just handed the sandwich back to him. I told him to switch halves with me and then bin the sandwich half when he wasn't looking. She asked to use my bathroom, which I of course agreed to. She came back to the kitchen after and asked if I had any refreshments. I said no and suggested that she wait for her clothes to finish at home. She asked if I was trying to get rid of her. I said we needed to get started on homework. She said she didn't mind. I said we needed to keep distraction to a minimum. She said, well, I know when I'm not wanted, and left. When she came back to switch her clothes to the dryer, she was very irritated. I apologized for hurting her feelings. She said it didn't matter, but she sounded angry. Then she left. I feel bad, but I also feel annoyed because who acts like that? Now, firstly, huge not the arsehole, absolutely weird ass behavior in my opinion. Not asking to use your laundry machine. I mean, you was very nice to say yes to that in the first place, but then to wander into your kitchen, ask for food and all this kind of thing. Something weird going on in my opinion. The area that I used to live in when I was younger, the whole area had a very open door policy. Within reason, sometimes people would come into your house on a nice summer's day or whatever and have a conversation. It was very community minded in that aspect most of the time, right? But there was always a couple of people that you didn't want doing that in your area, and there was a couple of right shifty bastards. And I know it's a bit different from this situation, but they would come in like they're coming around with an excuse to talk about something, but you could see them nosing around. There was always one who had a hint of if you was replacing some furniture, they would come round and because they heard about it and then would ask questions around it, trying to get the old furniture or something along those lines and sell it on. She was the one who had a giant argument with her own family when her mum died, and they was all arguing over the sofa, and they was literally all pulling at it, trying to get it off each other as it was going through the front door. It was wild. I'm going off on one as usual here, but also I just wanted to comment on the son. What an absolute legend, offering half of his sandwich. What a sweet little guy. But I would just definitely say, keep an eye on that kind of behavior from her. But Opie had some comments saying, I think she's in her 30s, maybe a hot early 40s. Also, she's married and has kids. Also says, I actually just moved here last month. I think I've spoken to her maybe twice. This was her first time coming into my house. I also think it was strange, to be honest. Also says, she put me in an awkward position with my son. Obviously, I want to model for him to always be polite and welcoming, but there is a limit. It's a more nuanced situation than a 5-year-old can probably grasp. Also says, I completely understand not wanting to drive to the laundromat, but wanting to also be fed when your house, which presumably contains food, is right there is so odd to me. Another one says, she's married and she's at least 10 years older than me. Another one says, like she wants to be my friend, or like she wants to get with me, because she's too old and too married for me. If you meant the friend thing, maybe, but what a weird way to make friends. Someone suggests that she wanted to use the bathroom to steal medication, and Opie says, if she wants my gas X that much, she can have it. Someone asks Opie how to make their grilled cheese, and someone says cook the egg at the same time you brown the toast. When you flip the toast, put a piece of cheese and put the egg on top, and then a second piece of cheese. Place one of the pieces of toast on top, brown side down, let the melted cheese seal in the egg and flip. Best way to eat a grilled cheese. The cheese seals it in until you take a bite. The yolk mixed with the melted cheese is perfection. So then it was a couple of days later that Opie did update the post and says, I have a tiny update about my weird neighbor with a broken washing machine. She came back. I know 90% of you said to never let her back in the house, so you're probably going to judge me heavily. In my defense, I was a little flustered by the whole thing. She waved me down again when we were walking up to the house. She said to wait because she had something for me. I waited because I guess I'm stupid. I figured she would just knock on the door anyway if I didn't. She came back with a pie and said that was thanks for using my washing machine. Oh, nice. I said thank you, and she didn't have to. She said, let's go inside and try a piece. Oh no. I said it was almost my son's nap time. She said, great, we can eat pie while he naps. A lot of you said she might have been interested in me, and that was still in my head. So I said, yeah, and you should invite your husband over too. I was expecting that to deter her. Nope. She got very excited. She said, that's a great idea. Here, you take the pie and I'll go get him. So at that point, I'm internally thinking, what the fuck? My son and I went inside. I started cutting pieces of pie because at this point, I felt like a victim of fate. She came over with her husband. I've never seen a man that looked as exasperated and embarrassed as this guy. We ate pie, and the whole time she asked me weird questions while her husband looked annoyed. Every once in a while I would say something and She would give her husband a look. He kept pretending not to see the looks. After we finished the pie, she asked if I had coffee. Her husband said, "Honey, he wants to put his son down for a nap. Let's go home." She said, "Oh, he doesn't mind." Her husband said, "He minds," while he took her elbow and started leading her out the door. She kept insisting that I didn't until they were outside. I gotta say, I think I'm in love with this guy. As weird and annoying as the whole thing was, I feel a lot better about my neighbor now. Some of the comments had some pretty crazy speculation that made me a little nervous. Now that I've met her husband, I'm pretty sure she's just bored, which is fine. It's annoying, but not creepy. So to all the people who were worried she was trying to seduce me or spy on me or steal from me, don't worry. Based on her husband's reactions, she's just like this. Man, OP's let his defenses down. He's too chill about this. But some comments from OP says, "I'm divorced. I have a kid." She seemed really zeroed in on that topic. I think divorce is actually pretty common, but maybe not in a social circle. My son and I are in a minority group. Not a super interesting one or anything though. And then it says, "Kinda weird. I'm younger than her and a different gender. I don't really see us being coffee buddies." Another one says she has kids. And another one says, "I think this is it. I'm pretty sure her kids are teenagers, so maybe now that her kids are the leave me alone age, she wants a project. Based on her behavior and a lot of the comments, I feel this is most likely." Another one says, "This is going to sound so bad, but the pie wasn't that good. Way too much sugar." And another one says, "It wasn't that great. To answer the question below, it was an apple pie. It was canned filling and had way too much sugar. It wasn't the worst pie ever, but she didn't even do a lattice crust." That's like the whole point of making a pie. So someone was asking about what they were actually talking about. OP said, "Mostly stuff about my divorce. I'm not salty about my divorce, so it didn't hurt my feelings, but she didn't know that. So I thought it was rude/weird. She wanted to know how long ago I got divorced, where we used to live, why I moved, why I have primary custody, what school my kid used to go to, what my ex-wife does for work, how she feels about not being the primary parent. Nosy stuff." She also asked why we got divorced, which I didn't have an answer to because her husband actually cut her off on that one. He said that's a private matter, and she dropped it. I wonder if she's like some sort of like neighborhood watch or something like that. Anyway, OP comes in with another update and says, "I have a weird neighbor with boundary issues. She invited herself into my house twice, and after that I tried to be more assertive in telling her she can't come over. I thought I was doing well, but I'd only seen a small slice of what she was capable of. Oh no, my ex-wife called me an hour ago to rip me a new exit orifice. My neighbor found her Facebook and messaged her to ask if she was my ex-wife. She said she was. My neighbor asked if she knew where I was currently living. She said she did. My neighbor then asked why her son didn't live with her, his mother. My ex blocked her and then called me to yell at me. I'm furious. I want to yell at my neighbor, but I don't want to be stupid. I apologized to my ex-wife, but she is still pissed. How can anyone be so entitled to think that they have the right to interfere in a complete stranger's life like this? She's just my neighbor. We aren't even friends. This is beyond the pale." I had to scroll down to see if there was another update. There is another update. Oh my bloody word. OP said in some more comments, people were asking OP questions and OP was replying, "I told her my last name. She told me hers, and at the time I didn't think it was weird. She also asked me a lot of questions about my ex, and I very stupidly answered them because I'm a big dumb dummy." OP also says, "My neighbor wouldn't even know my ex-wife existed if I hadn't very stupidly answered all of her invasive questions." Another one says, "I thought I was an idiot. To me it's normal to tell your neighbors things about yourself. I never anticipated this." Another one says, "I'm nervous about making an enemy though. We just moved here. I need to be smart about this. I'm wondering if I should talk to her husband about it." Another one says, "I thought she was just bored and nosy, but this is a whole different kettle of fish." Another one says, "Do you think I can get a restraining order just because of an unsolicited Facebook message? I'm ordering cameras now. Is Ring still good? I know a lot of people have stopped using it. What's a good alternative?" Another one says, "My ex sent me screenshots. I have the messages." Another one says, "Reading over the messages she sent my wife. That is the impression I get, that she thought my ex was unaware that my son and I live here. I know there were a couple of stories in the news not too long ago about a woman who was kidnapped by a parent and found 40 years later or something. Maybe she had that in the back of her mind and her imagination ran away with her. I really don't think that excuses her behavior, but I do hope that is what her problem is, because the alternatives are all so much creepier. Another one says the husband is cool. I think a conversation with him is likely to be productive. Another one says I didn't have time this morning, but I'll knock on his door when I get home from work. I hope she doesn't answer. If she does, I'll tell her she crossed the line, but it'd be so awkward. Another one says I talked to him. I waited for his car to pull in the driveway. Creepy, I know, but turnabout is fair play. And walked over to talk to him. I showed him the screenshots my ex sent me. He looked very annoyed. He said he would talk to her and he apologized. He said she means well, but also that she watches too much daytime crap. Hopefully, that's the end of it. The OP comes in with another update and says I talked to her husband, and he said he would talk to her. I don't doubt that he did, but whatever he said didn't get through. My son and I were eating breakfast when I heard a knock on the door. I thought there was absolutely no way it could be her, but it was. I looked through the peephole, and she was standing there with a baking tray. I just went back to the kitchen. I ignored her. My son wanted to know why I wasn't answering the door, and I said sometimes we're already doing something important, and so I don't have time for other people if it isn't an emergency. I said breakfast with him was important, and it wasn't an emergency, so I wasn't going to answer. She kept knocking for what felt like an age. Her husband must have come out at one point because I heard him calling her name. She said, I know he's in there. His car is here. Just incorrigible. This woman. I ignored her. I think her husband actually came and pulled her off the porch. That's what it sounded like to me. But I didn't look. Bugs Bunny is less Looney Tunes than she is. OP says, I'm of the mind that at the moment to not speak to her directly again. I think any level of attention might add fuel to the flame. She's obviously bored and fixated, and any engagement will alleviate some of the boredom and encourage the behavior. And I think I'm with OP on this, going grey rock is exactly right, because any engagement, even negative engagement, is kind of like a reward for this woman. She'll keep knocking, she'll keep coming back with pies or baked goods. I mean, I'm a fan of baked goods, but I'm not sure I'll be eating them at this point. The fact that she's outside shouting that she knows that you are home and had to be physically removed from your porch by her own husband, this is definitely like we said, grey rock, and just documenting all those kind of interactions, because it's definitely already stepped into unhinged territory, right? The fact that she's tracking down your ex-wife at the same time and getting into contact is absolutely wild ass behavior. The husband already knows something's up. I mean, you don't need to know the full ins and outs of that, I guess, but you just want her out of your life, and I'm absolutely with you. Holy moly. But what do you guys make of this situation? Maybe you got a different opinion on the matter. What would you do in it? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. And just a huge thank you for being here today, getting involved in the stories, your love, your support, your time. It always means the absolute world to me. So thank you so much, and hopefully see you in the next one. Take care and much love.